The lighting industry has been a snake oil industry for a long time. The lighting industry is what I call the lighting controls boom bust cycle. So every 10 years or so, a new technology in lighting controls emerges. Everyone gets all excited, and then it busts. I look at the HVAC guys, and they're better armed, better equipped, better trained.
Welcome to Control Talk, now your smart buildings videocast and podcast. This is episode 351, where we talk about all things HVAC and smart building controls. As you heard from the intro, we're going to be talking about lighting today. It's a beautiful day in Atlanta, getting ready to chop it up with Michael Colligan. Michael is, he's a lighting savant, for lack of a better word. He's got several podcasts in the lighting space, including Get a Grip on Lighting. So we're going to hear from Michael in just a few minutes. This episode is going to run long. I tell you, Michael is one of the most fascinating individuals I think I've talked to in quite some time, which says a lot because I talked to a lot of really fascinating people. But hey, before we get to Michael, a word from this week's sponsor. This week's sponsor is Blue Ridge Technologies. I've known Bill Duckelberger for years. He is one of the all-around best dudes I know, man. He's hardworking, he's honest. He used to work with Automated Logic. As a matter of fact, he ran the company for a while. So Bill has designed a lighting control system specifically for retrofit, but you can use it for new construction with the systems integrator in mind. Bill understands the challenges we have as control integrators, and if you haven't checked out Blue Ridge Technologies, I'll leave a link in the show note. You want to do it. Bill is good people. Like I said before, he's honest, he's hardworking. They got a really cool product. Check it out. Okay, so with that, let's get to Michael Colligan. All right, hi. I am so excited today. I got a really fascinating guest. He's done all kinds of things. He's been called a serial entrepreneur, among other things. He has a host of several podcasts, including Get a Grip on Lighting. He has a podcast studio that he produces podcasts for other people called the Get a Grip Podcasting Studio. He's up in Canada. His name is Michael Colligan. Mike, I'm a big fan of your podcast. Thanks for taking a few minutes to speak with us.
Eric, I'm happy to be here.
Well, awesome, brother. Listen, the serial entrepreneur term, that doesn't get passed around lightly. So give us a little bit about your background, man. How did you get that moniker?
I've started a series of small businesses. So when I grew up, my dad ran a light bulb company out of our house. Okay. When I was a kid, there would be light bulbs all over my basement. And I dropped out of university and I was getting into debt. And I came home and my dad said, "Why don't you work with me in the business?" And I said, "Okay." And so I started off selling light bulbs when I was 21, 22 years old. And my dad paid me 100% commission. No salary, no hourly rate, nothing like that. He said, "You're like everybody else. You're going to get paid commission." And so I went door to door selling light bulbs. Nice. And over that time period, I recognized that people wanted to have their light bulbs installed. And so I started installing people's light bulbs. Then people wanted to save energy. And so I started an electrical contracting company that was specifically designed to and created to install energy efficient lighting systems for people. So you're talking about 1999, 2000 time. And then the local utility started to pay rebates for people that could install to the customers of people that could install these kinds of systems. And that company began to really grow very quickly. And then what I recognized is that Ontario at the time was really bad at recycling mercury-containing light bulbs. And so I sought out some U.S. factories which were much bigger and much better at recycling and capturing the mercury. And then we're still in the same boat in Ontario here. Nobody's built a factory that properly retorts mercury in Ontario. It's a real shame. But anyway, so I became a broker. I started a company called Waste Aversion, which brokers the exports and brokers the transaction between a lamp recycling factory in the U.S. and a generator of the waste here in Ontario. And I pioneered that model. And now that company's probably maybe the second largest lamp recycler in Ontario. And we also do paint and hazardous wastes and other things like that now, thermometers. What's huge is hand sanitizer. Isn't that interesting?
Oh,
All
it
this
is,
hand
yeah.
sanitizer from the pandemic is actually expired. And what people don't realize is they're rubbing hazardous waste on their hands. But
Oh
anyway,
my, well, I
yeah,
did not know that. Oh
so
my gosh, all you hoarders out there, it's time to get rid of your hand sanitizer, right?
expired hand sanitizer is treated as a hazardous waste.
Interesting.
And so is sunscreen. Lots of things I've learned that are interesting on the waste side of things. And then I got bored with stuff and I said, I want to start a podcast. So I started a podcast in 2016 called Get a Grip on Lighting, which you mentioned in the introduction.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was more of for fun, but it ended up exploding and becoming quite big within the lighting industry. And now, as a part of that, I learned a lot about how podcasts need to be produced in order to be monetized. And so people started to come to me, and I built a podcast studio here in my office. My old office is the producer's office. The old lunchroom is the studio. And we produce podcasts for other people. We record podcasts for other people, and I coach them on how to become a podcast host. And
Nice.
I teach them the principles. There's different kinds of strategies to host a podcast, but there's really only one way to monetize a podcast. And so I coach people towards those strategies and help them understand, how are you going to pay for this, or do you want advertisers to pay for this? And if you want advertisers to pay for this, you have to do certain things. And that hasn't changed, and those things are still the same. And so that business has taken off. And so I'm probably forgetting. Oh, I also started a business in the States that manages the United States that manages trade associations. And so that's called Get a Grip Management. It's with the co-host of the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, Greg Garrick. And so that
Yeah.
management company is actually quite successful as well. So I've started a lot of small to medium-sized businesses, Eric, and they all make money and they employ people and they're fun to run. So it's quite
Well,
an honor.
listen, I tell you what, I concur. You're a serial entrepreneur, and hopefully there's not a cure for that. That's exciting stuff. But if you don't mind, I'd like to cycle back for a minute, because in our industry, which is HVAC and smart building controls, I can't tell you how many vendors I talk to, how many people I talk to, and they go, man, I want to start a podcast. So if somebody out there in our audience is listening and they go, like this Michael serial entrepreneur Colligan guy, I think he could help me. Real quickly, walk us through the process of how somebody would get started with you that wanted to produce a podcast, whether they wanted to monetize it or not, but they just go, hey, I'd like for this guy to produce my podcast. Did they have to come to Canada for that, or how does it
No,
work?
everything's remote now, but I'll just give you the secret sauce because the podcast side to me is more of a joy. Whether I'll help someone even for free, if they don't use my studio or whatever, I just enjoy it so much, and I love to see the energy behind it. It's such a great movement that we've established in our society for so many different reasons. But here's the reality: so not all likes and listens are equal. Okay, so Joe Rogan has no idea who listens to his podcast. I hate to tell people that. Now, maybe Spotify does now or whatever. I don't know exactly what Spotify does or doesn't do. But here's the facts. Joe Rogan has to have millions and millions in downloads and listens in order for his podcast to be successful. Okay? That's because he's not appealing to any particular group that has money. If you start a podcast and if you want to make money, okay, you have to develop an audience that advertisers will know are valuable to them. And so if you're an orthopedic surgeon and you can get 200 or 300 other orthopedic surgeons to listen to your podcast, I can guarantee you that there are companies that would line up for miles to sponsor that podcast, even if it only had 300 or 400 people listening to it. Because orthopedic surgeons influence the purchase of very expensive equipment at hospitals. And so you have to find an audience. The second thing you have to do is you have to stay in your lane, stay in your subject matter expertise. Nobody cares about your political opinion if you're an orthopedic surgeon talking about the equipment orthopedic surgeons use on a podcast. If you're an HVAC podcast, stay away from Joe Biden and Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau and all your stupid opinions on politics and society that nobody cares about that are listening, because everyone's allowed to have their own opinion on politics. That's why we have private voting booths. And there's enough material out there. If you don't enter a saturated market. So if you want to start a podcast on two ladies talking about sex, or you want to talk about the woke culture, or you want to talk about BLM or whatever, from any perspective you're coming from, the market is completely saturated. There's no money in that. And so you're basically wasting your time. If you have subject matter expertise and you can stay in your lane on a podcast, the second thing you have to do is commit to doing 12 to 24 podcasts. Do not be a bucket lister. Most of the people that use our studio on a rental basis are bucket listers. They want to say that they did a podcast. Go down to Podcast Alley, Eric. Go down to Podomatic, wherever you go. Most podcasts have 1 to 3 episodes.
Yeah,
and
fair statement. Yeah.
So I would say that commit to your 12 episodes and then pay someone to produce it for you. Because most likely, Eric, maybe you produce your own show, but it's a lot of work to produce a podcast,
a lot of work. And that's one thing that really appeals to me about what you're offering. And I think it might appeal to my audience too, is the fact that, hey, if you're, because let's take, you got a vendor, for example, like a Honeywell or a Johnson Controls. Maybe they want to get a podcast, or maybe you got a local HVAC service contractor who wants to get a podcast. I tell them, it's very similar, Mike. I tell them the hardest thing is getting started. You got to commit to doing 10 to 12 episodes. And your first ones are probably going to be terrible. They might not be, but nobody's going to listen to those anyway, probably. But then I think they get wrapped around the axle about the producing it. And the fact that somebody like you could do that for them, right? Mm-hmm. Coach them up. If I've got a contractor out there that's listening and goes, yeah, I've been meaning to get a podcast. I don't want to be a bucket lister type thing. It seems like they could call someone like you and you could help them. All right, let's format the shows in terms of subject matter we're going to talk about. Okay, here are the topics. Here's how I can coach you so that you can make it interesting. And then past that, the gear was where a lot of people, I think, get torqued out about. The gear is probably the least most important part, especially if you're working with somebody like you, right? Because they can remote in what we're doing right now. And then and then your people.
So this is my gear in my studio right now. I'm talking to you on a $30 headset off Amazon, right?
Yeah,
because my gear won't work with your gear, or whatever. Yeah, people get obsessed with gear and technical side of it. Eric, what I would say is that contractor or that vendor out there, be careful when you're doing public relations. People don't want to listen to public relations. Okay. So if you want to do a podcast about how great your company is and how amazing all your employees are, the only people that are going to listen to that is your employees, maybe.
Yeah, and only because they have to, right?
So who's the target audience, right? So if the target audience is and if you're a contractor and you want to make money podcasting, I would coach you that you want to create content that your colleagues would want to listen to.
Yes.
If you're a manufacturer of that equipment, I would get a contractor who's good at podcasting, and I would sponsor his podcast.
Yes. For all you people out there, Control Trends does take sponsors. I would be a great sponsor for your podcast. No, you're spot on. And then, Michael, the other thing I tell them is, don't start with just talking about your product. Talk about the problem that it solves, right? Like you were just give away the information first, talk about the problem, and then you can talk about your solution.
Yeah. And you know what? If you have colleagues, so for example, an HVAC contractor, Eric, probably buys, I don't know, $250,000 to $10 million a year in HVAC equipment. That's a valuable audience. One of those guys, one of those listens from one of your colleagues is probably worth $50 to $100.
Yeah,
like you're talking about. When you're in that realm, when you're in this realm of subject matter expertise podcasts, which are so valuable, and I love talking about them because this is the future, okay? That is each one of those shows. If you have 2,000 or 3,000 people listen to a podcast, like that should be charged as an advertising at the same rate as it is to exhibit at a trade show.
Yes. So we got the podcast thing down, and I encourage our listeners, and at the end, we're going to get information on how people can get a hold of you for sure. But Michael, what intrigues me is, as I told you earlier, I'm very much the same thing. Joy of podcasting, started Control Trends back in 2006, started podcasting, and it's fascinating to me, just the technology, but more so the people. But one of the things I think we're very similar, you mentioned before we got on the show that in the lighting business, there's a new lighting integrator, right? It's sort of a new position that's come up. And in our side of the house, the control side, there's a master systems integrator that brings everything together. So let's talk specifically about commercial buildings or institutions or whatnot, buildings that use lighting. Sort of educate our audience, if you will, on how the people in the lighting industry think about that business, how they go after it, and then tell us a little about this new integrator that's arising.
So first off, I'm going to preface this with just noting that most lighting control systems are overridden.
Okay.
Now, not all. some are good. But most lighting control systems are so fussy and finicky, whether they're digital app-based or they're actually breaker-based systems or whatever. People don't like them. They're hard to learn and use. You need someone that knows how to use them, right? But most HVAC systems in large commercial property are used by the occupants of the property. So if I go down and I visit a large commercial tower in downtown Toronto, or I go to a big mall in Toronto or whatever, you're going to see operators and maintenance operators looking at lighting HVAC control systems very carefully all day long, measuring the heat and the cooling and all this kind of thing that's happening. Now, I don't know how they work specifically, but I know that these systems are monitored and operated by the building controls people. Okay, whether those are third party, sometimes they're outside contractors that are there permanently on site. Sometimes they're the inside maintenance people of that building that have been trained on that system. And the lighting control systems are often overridden because they're just too fussy and there's nothing really, they don't need any information from them. They're either on or they're off.
Right.
Okay. And so what we've seen in the lighting industry is what I call the lighting controls boom bust cycle. So every 10 years or so, a new technology in lighting controls emerges. Everyone gets all excited and then it busts. Okay, the first one was the combination of passive infrared with ultrasonic together in the early 2000s. That was
I
going to take
remember
everything
that.
over. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
The next was everybody was going to connect all their light fixtures and sensors with Cat5 cable. That was about 2007 to 2012. Then that fell apart. Now we're into the Bluetooth connectivity world. And what we're seeing is that, from my perspective, and this is why we started a separate show called the Lighting Controls Podcast, what we're seeing is that there's a lot of high level airplane overhead talk about lighting taking over all building controls. And from what I know from boots on the ground and from working in the field in buildings with customers on their maintenance of their building every day, is it's more likely that the HVAC world will add lighting controls to their existing software suites and integrations that they have in the buildings. Why? Because people already use these systems. So the lighting community is in a little bit of a pipe dream where they think that they're going to take over. But just in observation, let's say it was a war. You know what I mean? I look at the HVAC guys and they're better armed, better equipped, better trained, and they've been in the field for forever, since I've been in lighting. And the lighting industry, it doesn't know what they're doing yet that well. They don't have an integrated protocol. The systems don't talk to each other. The new equipment is not compatible across manufacturers. And everyone's trying to get it done on a phone, and no serious building operator wants to log into an app on his phone to control 40,000 lights in the building. You know, Michael, what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And I think we have the opportunity, a very unique opportunity right now to become matchmakers, because it is a huge market. And I think you're right. I see them going down parallel paths, going after the same thing. And our integrators, lighting's an afterthought. They put it in. But to your point, our side, the automation side, they already have the control systems in the building. The owners are not going to want to put a new system in, front end system. They're going to integrate with their existing one. And the other thing that our audience is asking us for, our customer sets, I should say, our owners, is they want to use data to make better decisions, right? And obviously lighting provides a tremendous amount of data in terms of occupancy rates, who's here, what in a retail store, what are they dwelling on, and so on and so forth. And I don't know how the software works with that for you guys, but we've already got that. In other words, we've been integrating data, providing owners with the ability to make better decisions. And we have companies like Acuity, for example. I'm sure you're familiar with Acuity. They're owned by a company called Distech, or Distech Controls owns, Acuity owns Distech Controls. So they're integrating, and it's a huge advantage for people that can do that. Now, one of the challenges we're running into on new construction, I'll let you speak to this, is they're in different sections of the specification, right? Like, how do we bring those walls down where an integrator and a lighting specialist can get together and let's put together the package that the owner's looking for?
So what this is a preliminary term for this role, would be lighting controls integrator, right? And I don't see the lighting community having anything to offer the HVAC community in terms of how control systems should be built and operated. What I see the lighting community being able to do is cooperating with HVAC control companies and integrators and contractors and saying, we can provide this API or portal or some kind of software into this particular lighting system. Can you guys integrate that into your control system? And then we can offer these various types of benefits and solutions. And that I don't think, like you said, I don't think building operators want to have two systems. I think they want one system, right?
Exactly.
And I think it should be led by HVAC. I don't think it should be led by the lighting industry. But in terms of information or data, the lighting is more pervasive throughout the building in that regard.
Yes.
And so you always are going to have more lights than people in a building. Okay. So that maybe not always, but probably 95% of the time. How many lights are in the First Canadian Place or wherever? There's so many light fixtures out there, right? And if all of them are connected either by Bluetooth or by power, internet over power line or whatever. I like internet over power line because I don't know if there's that much information they actually need. When I interviewed a guy about internet over power line, and it's basically like a Commodore 64.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And how much data do you need? Do you want to know how many times the occupancy sensor has been tripped? What is it that you need to know? I don't think we need to use the kind of software that runs Google or Facebook. I think maybe that's too heavy. But anyway, my point is that I think that the lighting community needs to come and bring a business case to the HVAC community to add these fixtures and sensors and all that to existing HVAC controls. And you're right, it needs to happen at the specification at the beginning of the job.
Yeah. We have a lot of the consulting engineers listen to this podcast, as well as building owners, as well as integrators. And it's interesting because when we talk, and I don't know whether you've, in the lighting side of it, is tagging data, the way data is tagged, at least on our side. You could say like a outdoor air sensor, you could tag that thing 1,000 different ways, and most manufacturers tag them differently. So, we have a community called Haystack Connect, which any of your listeners that might hear this, it's worth checking into, which is an agreed upon standard. So a system can tag it any way it wants to, and then it gets translated to something that can be read by anything, right? Mm-hmm. So that makes it, because again, at least on our side, Michael, getting the data was always expensive, right? Because getting in it, but what was expensive about it was having to reformat it to a consistent standard. So no matter what system you were using, that they could read it. What I'm hearing here is there's just a huge opportunity to probably squeeze cost out of the whole supply chain. And I think about if I was, and I'm a distributor of building automation controls, if a lighting rep was to come into our office and say, hey, we do a lot of new construction stuff. I know you work with a bunch of different integrators. What jobs are you looking at? Let's combine and see if we can come up with a way we could squeeze cost out of the system. So we can go to the engineer and say, or the owner, we can do this less expensively because this is redundant or this isn't going to work right together. This is going to be a problem later on down the line, and create real value. I think, and this is what you're obviously saying too, is how do we get people talking in a way that they can gain an edge by creating value?
So one of the problems I see from the lighting industry's perspective, okay, so I have 25 years in lighting almost now. And so there's no additional value proposition from using dumb controls to using Bluetooth connected controls. To me, there's no energy efficiency play there, right? So if you do a solid lighting control system with relays and low voltage and all this sort of stuff, say a parking garage or something like that, and you turn off 80% of the lights when no one's in the garage, and you have a good scout sensor in the elevator lobby and in the entrances and exits to the garage, so the lights come on before anyone's in the garage, and they all come on, and this sort of thing. There's no value proposition between that and a digital control system, okay, in terms of energy efficiency.
Right.
That's a problem, okay, because what's the value that you're going to add? It has to be this data situation. You have to be able to get some information or something from the lighting controls that then can be incorporated into a larger building maintenance or automation system that delivers value to the building owner and to the operators that are running the building. One of the problems I see is that, and this is why we started the Lighting Controls Integrators Council down at the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, a lot of big, long names there, but We started that council because first, people have to be trained on how to commission a passive infrared and ultrasonic sensor. That's being forgotten in a way, and people are starting off with, oh, I got a phone on my app and I can change which fixture a sensor controls. But if you can't commission that particular ceiling mounted or switch mounted sensor to not turn on when the HVAC comes on, okay, or to not turn off when people are in the room, if you don't know how to commission that, then whether it's a smart sensor or it's a stupid sensor, it needs commissioning. And so if you can't do those basic things, then the controls are not going to work properly. And nothing is more annoying to people than lighting controls that don't work properly, which is why most lighting control systems, as I said earlier, are overridden because they're annoying and fussy and people can't make them work properly. Yeah, for me, the lighting industry is not ready for this full kind of integration yet. We have to really understand the basics of how lighting controls work, not from the digital side, but actually the analog side. When that passive infrared is shining into the garage and it's pointed at the heater on, the garage heater or whatever, or the fan that exhausts the garage of the bad air, and it flicks the lights on every time. And so you haven't saved any energy. Right? So that commissioning base needs to be pounded into the lighting industry, and which is why we started Lighting Controls Integrators Council. Once we're able to actually create lighting control systems that save energy, that turn lights off when people aren't there, that keep them on when people are there. Once we're able to do that as an industry, I think then we can start talking about data and all these other things.
No, it's fascinating. Very similar to the building automation control side of it, right? We started out and it was about saving energy. That was the deal. You went in, you tried to save energy. But we've got a new problem now, a huge new problem. And I wonder if this is true for you guys too, which is before COVID, people would call me up, how do we save energy and how do we do it the cheapest way, less expensive way possible? Now it's, how do we get people to come back into the buildings? Okay. Mm-hmm. So the emphasis, that's what people are asking me now. How do we get them back in? And we got to have the building space. It's got to be better than somebody's home. It's got to be, the air's got to be better. It's got to be safer. All that stuff. It's to the point now that building owners are talking to Hollywood set designers. How do we bring it in so that people want to be there because it's a cool space, right? And the other part of the conversation has come up is, it's about saving energy, but it's also about how do you make people more productive. And I'll ask you this question, but at least what little I know, lighting and even the color of lighting has a huge effect on people psychologically and their productivity. So where do you see the lighting industry with that? Because from what we're hearing on the outside, that seems like a huge advantage to sell, right? We'll save you money, but we'll also have your people be happier and more productive.
Yeah, the lighting industry has been a snake oil industry for a long time.
Okay. Nice.
So you go back to the 70s, 80s, 90s, you're going to see we can cure seasonal affective disorder, whatever this sort of stuff. I've talked to a lot of scientists in lighting, and they have some research about the effects of electric light on circadian entrainment and these types of arguments and all this sort of stuff. But electric light has nothing to do with sunlight. Okay, they're two completely different forms of radiation. Okay,
fair enough.
So what we know is that being in the sun is good for you. Contrary to sunglasses and sunscreen companies, the sun is amazing, and you should allow as much of it directly into your eyes as you possibly can tolerate or handle. Okay, because what that will do is it will trigger a vitamin D creation in your body, all manner of different health effects. Now listen, some people have problems with their eyes. They have a real problem with their eyes, and they need to wear sunglasses, okay, because of that. But 99.9999% of people don't have that problem. And so you need to have good natural light hygiene. I would like to see the lighting industry, before we start making promises of the health effects of lighting or circadian or productivity or less off time or all these other things, I would like the lighting industry to stop damaging people's health. That would be phase one for me.
Well, talk about how they're doing that. That's a great statement. Let's hear.
Okay, whatever you call it, the Hippocratic Oath, right? Let's get rid of the LED flicker. So back you'll recall when you were a kid that the fluorescent lamps in your school used to flicker and buzz all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this was actually proven by a gentleman named Arnold Wilkins, who's a researcher in Britain. And he proved that T12 magnetic technology in a double-blind survey, he proved that was causing people to have headaches and all these different kinds of health issues from that electric light. We solved that when we went to T8 fluorescent. Okay, so we went from 60 hertz. This is very important to understand. So a fluorescent tube would go from 100% to 70%, 60 times a second. Okay.
Right. Okay.
T8 would not do that fluctuation because it was operated at 50, 60,000 hertz, whatever it is. So the light wouldn't go off long enough for the amount of light coming out of the tube to drop. Okay.
Okay.
So we eliminated that problem by using electronic ballasts. Okay. We reintroduced it with LED.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. So the original bypass LED tubes and fixtures and all these things that we poured out from 2014 to about 19 all flicker off and on, not from 100 to 70, but from 0 to 100.
Oh my God.
60 times a second. Okay?
Okay.
So this is a massive problem. It's deployed. It's out there. There's millions and millions of light fixtures that flick on and off. You can see it on your cell phone. Put your cell phone on slow-mo. Look at the light fixtures. You'll see them flicking on and off. You can take a fidget spinner and spin it. And if you go outside and look at the fidget spinner, you won't have any blinking. If you have flickering LEDs, you'll see the blinking on the fidget spinner. There's all manner of ways to test for it. That's the first thing. The second thing is that outdoor LED lighting is a catastrophe. Okay? It's an absolute catastrophe. So in the past, you would make a filamented bulb, right? So you'd have a metal halide, an HPS, whatever, halogen even, maybe even incandescent, okay? And they would put it in an outdoor street light. The light bulb would be recessed up into the fixture. It would have a reflector, okay? And then a glass cover, and the light would come out. And I don't know what this is called, but there's like a mixing effect of the light that creates more of a glow. What we've done is we've put these laser beam lights all over the place where you can literally, while you're driving, see the array of the light. You can see the source of the light. In headlights in cars, this is causing accidents. So I would like the lighting industry to step back from the idea that somehow they're going to make some kind of magical mystery lighting system that mimics the sun. Get that out of your head. And I'd like you to stop doing damage to people's health with lighting. Okay?
Oh, wow.
That would be a better place to start. And so this idea that we're going to get back people in the office with this circadian system that does this, and that's all mumbo jumbo nonsense. Okay? They have no idea if they can deploy that. Now, maybe some researcher at the Lighting Research Center has shown that when you do this with Alzheimer's patients, they sleep better. That doesn't translate into the workplace automatically as a way to entrain people's circadian rhythms. You understand what I mean? Those are two totally different things. So I would say to the lighting industry, let's get out of the snake oil business, okay? And let's stop doing damage first.
Nice.
How's that?
I love it. I love it. I love it, man. I think this is going to be my best show ever. Man. Joe Rogan's going to be looking for you soon. So what would you advocate? So LEDs, I'm hearing not good. I'm assuming they do save some energy, but the health, there's a trade-off.
I wouldn't say LEDs are not good. There's the new equipment that is now, a lot of it's flicker free.
Okay.
But there's been no recall. Okay?
I got you. So you got to be careful of the flicker LED.
Yeah, the older stuff, most of the new stuff now, we've eliminated that problem out of it. The real problem is the massive increase in light pollution that LEDs have caused in our outdoor environments. And I'm very passionate about this. I'm the host of the Restoring Darkness podcast. I'm also the interim executive director of the Lighting and Darkness Foundation, which we just started, which is a 501c3. It's getting up and running. Light pollution has gone absolutely out of control. And light pollution is not, in the age of LED, in the age of high-pressure sodium and metal halide, light pollution was a metaphor, Eric.
Huh.
In the age of LED, light pollution is not a metaphor, okay? Light trespass is not a metaphor. People are putting up, I'm sure you've heard of Javon's paradox, right? The cheaper something becomes, the more of it we use.
Yeah.
Okay, we've gone absolutely crazy with outdoor electric light. There's so many issues with it, from the headlights to the street lights to the death of fish in the oceans from the light. There's so many different problems
So
created by light pollution.
is the light pollution itself toxic, or is it just we need to have the cycles of dark to light and it's taking away that part of the cycle where things are dark, or are there actual things in the night light that I totally get about you're driving or whatever, too much light and you get blinded by it. But what else is there? So I'm getting this, but when you say it's killing fish, for example, how is that happening?
So you have to remember, the LED is a laser beam.
Okay.
Okay, so the lighting industry is actually regulated by the FDA. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
So the FDA is responsible to regulate the lighting industry. Okay, and they haven't done this in decades. All right, but was it a big deal when we had filament-based light sources? No, it wasn't a big deal, because it's light, right? It's in a reflector, it's
Right.
whatever, right? Now, LEDs are laser beams. They should be regulated like lasers, not like incandescent light bulbs.
Got it.
Now, I'm exaggerating. There probably needs to be a new category in between lasers and incandescent lights that is LED. Now, LEDs are not bad. I think LEDs are a fantastic technology, okay, but we need to improve them and make them better. The problem is that in the rush to achieve energy savings to mitigate climate change, we have introduced a whole manner of new environmental problems that didn't exist prior to that, okay? And one of those is light pollution. We're not the only species that lives on the earth. So in the past, when we first started, Eric, as with electric light, okay, Thomas Edison, there's other people that invented it too. I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but anyway, Thomas Edison commercialized it, let's say that, okay? So light pollution was beautiful. Like, our original light pollution was so beautiful to us. Have you been to Paris? Have you seen the Eiffel Tower? It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
And so our original expressions of light pollution were very beautiful. Okay. We'd light up the Eiffel Tower. We did these amazing things on buildings, but the electricity was expensive. The light fixtures were expensive. So it was only like a light touch in the early days of lighting. Okay. As we move forward to the 20th century and electricity gets cheaper, light fixtures get cheaper, everything, we start to use more and more electric light. And so we've gone from beautiful to ostentatious to grotesque. Gaudy and then grotesque. And now you have thousands of birds dying every day because there was one day 1,000 birds crashed into one building in Detroit or Chicago and died. They're littered all over the ground around the building in the morning.
Because they're blinded by the lights.
They're blinded by the light coming from the buildings, right? And we have all manner of species, like fish, for example. When you put the 5,000 Kelvin high color temperature lights on near the water, the LED laser beams pierce way deep into the water, unlike HPS. And so it goes sometimes 2 miles out into the ocean.
Wow.
Causing fish not be able to breed properly. I interview scientists and I had this accumulated knowledge.
Right.
All of these different things are like a disaster, okay? And it's going up 10% a year. Like, it's not getting any better, okay? So in the race for energy efficiency, 5,000 Kelvin is the highest lumens per watt. We're using 5,000 Kelvin, and that's it, right? And other people, they blew the lighting industry experts out of the water. Philips, GE, Sylvania are now out of lighting. The leaders they're all gone. All the leaders are gone. And what do you have left? And so the lighting industry has to step back and say, we screwed up.
Yeah.
But they won't do it. I'm the one saying it, which is my podcast is probably popular. But so I say it all the time. I raise my hand and say, we got to fix this. The lighting industry is going to fix this. And everyone's going to get rich, Eric. Why don't we embrace the problem? Just admit we screwed up and fix it. I don't understand it. The lighting industry won't do it, though. They're coming along, though.
But what I hear you saying is you're getting rewarded to fix it, because it seems like one of the solutions is just start turning the lights off at night.
We do have safety and security issues that we have to deal with. And so one of the things that kind of, with the lighting control situation or the HVAC controls, one of the things that I've often said is all of our smartest software developers and all of our best user experience developers, you know what they work for? Facebook. They work for
Mhm.
video game manufacturers or
Right, right.
video game creators. What a waste. Get those people over here.
Yeah,
And the other thing is, like, there's a surge in the 2000s in America, like move fast and break stuff and creative destruction. We're talking about our critical infrastructure, Eric. We're not
right.
talking about online gambling or pornography or Facebook or anything like that. Our lighting and HVAC infrastructure is critical infrastructure. It's not, we do not want to move fast and break stuff. Okay, we want
Right.
it to work. We need to be able to fix it. And so these issues are caused by a rush, moving too fast, not allowing industries to adapt, government interference in the lighting industry, significant amounts of utility and government interference in the lighting industry. And so the lighting industry has to take back its destiny. That would be my call to it.
Okay. No, that sounds great. And thank you for putting that out there. I had no idea. But like I said, again, it seems like it could be a pretty good thing because if you reduce the lighting, then you're saving energy. And yeah, you're right about the security. We got motion detectors and stuff like that. So it seems for safety issues, somebody walks into a parking garage, the lights come on or whatever. But wow, interesting.
In the exterior world, it's very difficult to find proof that exterior light increases safety.
Yeah.
It's actually very difficult to find that. I haven't found it yet. I call it the straw man argument. If you tell somebody that if somebody commits a burglary, we need more light, right? Put more lights out there. Lighting is neither the cause nor the solution to criminal behavior. Okay, I got news
Yeah.
for everybody.
Just
You
a
understand
sales.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Electric light
Yeah.
doesn't cause crime, and light is not the solution to crime. Okay?
Right.
We have this situation though where people have an axiomatic presupposition that more light equals more safety. That's a false axiomatic presupposition. Nobody can prove that. And in fact, we can prove that there are all these other harms from excessive, ostentatious, grotesque outdoor lighting. And we
Yeah.
need to fix the problem.
Let's shift gears real quick. We've talked about new construction. What about retrofit? I know one of the big lighting companies in our industry, he's an ex building automation controls guy named Bill Duckelberger, has a company called Blue Ridge Technology. And he's got systems that our integrators love because they can just, put the systems in to control the lighting and it's easy to do. But how much of your industry do you see focused on retrofit? Or are they mainly just going after new construction?
So most buildings are already built.
Yeah. Good
All
point.
buildings are already built that
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have, right? So our building stock needs to be improved, and that's what you're referring to. And retrofit is most of the market. So
Okay.
new construction is the specifiers end of the lighting market, where you
Right.
have engineers and specifiers, and you have very high-end equipment going into those places. It's a new construction project. They're paying X amount per square foot. They have a lighting designer. They have these other people, and so that's it. That's a part of the lighting industry. But most of the lighting is already deployed and needs to be maintained and fixed. And so retrofit is a massive market. And I think that would be the best place to start. And the reason why I say that is because if you had a solid HVAC controls integrators company and then a really high end lighting contractor that has lighting controls integrators, because a lot of these lighting controls integrators are actually software developers, Eric.
Okay. Makes sense.
Right?
Yep.
So they literally port data into other systems using middleware and all this kind of stuff, right? And these guys come from the theatrical side of lighting. So they're actually, a lot of them are coming out of theater lighting and theater lighting control, and they're moving into the general lighting industry. I think retrofit is the only place to start. You know why? Because you have to prove to the building owner that it's worth it to him
Yeah.
or her. Do
Hey.
it. You understand what I mean? You have to make the business case to somebody. And so people have to put on their hats and sharpen their pencils and get it really figured out good. I think we should definitely start a retrofit.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I know, like in HVAC and building automation controls, there's a contractor that 99% of the time is doing the maintenance on that, coming in and servicing the system. Is that true with lighting too, or is it more once the stuff gets installed or retrofitted, then the building owners, maintenance people are just changing the bulbs? Is it that simple, or is there more to it than that?
You're talking about, so lighting it's interesting that you bring that up because in the past, lighting contractors and HVAC contractors would be very similar to one another.
Mm-hmm.
You'd
Mm-hmm.
have a book of business, and perhaps a distributor would be selling light bulbs into that that building and they'd have their own maintenance staff or they'd have a lighting contractor. But what you had was like a cyclical relationship. Most lighting distribution businesses were what I would call pseudo subscription businesses.
Okay.
Because we knew how long light bulbs lasted.
Yeah.
We know how often people would have to order them. And so the revenues were very predictable. The problem is with LEDs, any new LED fixture is a piece of e-waste when it burns out. So what you have in the deployed base now, all these flat panels or all these what is called purpose-built or solid state LED light fixtures, they're garbage when they burn out. Nobody can fix them. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to say nobody. There can be some repairs. We do some repairs here out of my shop, but mostly you're talking about, okay, removing the fixture. So what's happened is we've collapsed the life cycle of the light fixture and exchanged it for longer life of the light source. Okay. So an LED system will last 2 or 3 fluorescent tube lives. Okay. But a fluorescent fixture will last indefinitely. So what we have to do is never mind standardizing protocols for lighting controls. The lighting industry has to standardize mechanical form factors for the parts that they make light fixtures with, like we did in the past. And so now what you used to have was this pseudo subscription distributor business or contractor business where you're in and out of the building, you're changing ballasts, you're group relamping, you're spot relamping, whatever you're doing. There's different strategies. Every customer is different. Now what you have is cut it and run. You know, the lighting, everyone's going to hate me after this one, but the lighting industry is flying by night to make a quick buck on everybody. That's what's happening.
Okay.
And the fact is that they know that a lot of this equipment is going to fail in 4 to 10 years. And then what? The accountants have amortized that capital expenditure over 25 years because that's how you amortize lighting. Right? It's a 25-year capital expenditure.
Well,
guess
years
what?
from now, there's going to be a rude awakening, huh?
Yeah, it's already happening. We see it everywhere. Flat panels turning colors. There's all sorts of problems out there. But the lighting industry just has to step back and admit its mistakes, and they can make money off all this. We can just start. The only people that are going to fix it, Eric, is the lighting industry. It's not like another industry is going to come along and say, we're going to fix the outdoor lighting. If the lighting industry has to do it.
Well, Michael, let me ask you a question. So for our owners out there that listen, and we get a lot of owners that listen, as well as a lot of facility managers at these different facilities, what should they be asking their lighting distributor, their lighting contractor for? When next time they come in, they're going to go, hey, I heard this podcast, and they're going to go, hey, I want to know about this and this. How do we fix this? What questions, if you were working for a facility and somebody hired you to come in and go, okay, the lighting guy's coming in, Mike, we want you to talk to him. What questions would you be asking them to do? What would you be asking for?
So I'm going to preface this by saying answer one is I have fluorescent fixtures right now that I want to upgrade to LED.
Okay.
So if I had fluorescent fixtures that I wanted to upgrade to LED, I'd go out, get quotes, and I'd say, can I reuse my existing fixtures in order to reduce waste and save cost? Yes, you can by using T-LEDs. So there's actually LED tubes that are made in the shape of existing fluorescent tubes.
So you go with the fluorescents. Okay, cool. That's got to save a ton of money, right?
Yeah.
Can I remove the ballast? Lighting guy's not going to want to tell them that, but go ahead. And then can I move the ballast?
Can I remove the ballast and run that on line voltage? That would be the next question. Yes, you can do that. Is that equipment available for utility rebates? Yes, it is available for utility rebates. Does it use more energy than a solid state purpose-built light fixture? Maybe not. Both of them will be within 5% of one another, okay, depending on what fixture you choose. Will it look as good? No, the new LED light fixture will probably look nicer and people will be happier.
At least for 4 years.
Then what should I do? Yeah, for 5 to 10 years. And then you got to rip them all out and start over again. And so replaceability should be a right within the lighting industry.
Okay.
And repairability. Again, this is critical infrastructure we're playing around with here. This is not a phone that you have in your pocket. It's not a piece of electronics. It is a piece of electronics now, but it needs to be repairable and replaceable. And that's what we advocate for at the Lighting and Darkness Foundation, is we advocate for that repair and replacement. But so if I was a building owner, I would ask the guy, hey, how do you repair this when it burns out. Oh no, it's never gonna burn out. LEDs last forever. Yeah, that's pretty 2016. But
Yeah.
nobody that knows anything about LED talks like that anymore. I'll tell you that.
And if they do, you need another lighting guy, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Anybody that talks about a life of more than 5 years in a commercial setting for an LED light fixture is full of crap.
Okay, got it. You had on something that when you mentioned some of the LED lights are not safe, right? I would think a savvy business owner or even an employer would want to know the right question to ask to make sure that they're getting the right LED lights. And then they would probably want to make sure that they informed all their employees or tenants that, hey, we got the safe LED lights. So how does an owner suss that out to find out if he's got, flicker-free light LEDs? What's the question to ask there?
If he already has them deployed?
Yeah, to find out if he's got them deployed. Yeah.
Go grab one of your kids' fidget spinners.
Okay.
Spin it under your lighting system. And if you see flicker on the fidget spinner, your lights are flickering.
Okay. Or you mentioned earlier you could actually take your smartphone. You could take
a camera. Yeah, you put it on slow motion, and you'll see the flicker.
Okay.
That's the first thing you can do.
Okay. And then is it a big deal to go from? Do you have to change the ballast as well to go from a flickering?
No, if it has a ballast, it won't flicker.
Oh, okay.
If it has a fluorescent ballast, like if it's T12, first of all, the equipment won't operate on T12 ballast, but it will operate on T8 ballast.
Okay.
So if they actually have a fluorescent fixture from the 90s, 2000s, or whatever, and they've put LED tubes in there, it won't flicker. Okay. It only flickers when they bypass it or when they've done that. And that you want to look for jobs that were done between 2016 and maybe 2021 at the latest. After 2021, it's not going to be an issue.
Michael, this has been so much fun. This has been really insightful. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking a few minutes to come speak with us. Let's walk through how people get a hold of you, the different podcasts, and I'll put links too. But
the headline show is Get a Grip on Lighting.
Get a Grip,
so just getagriponlighting.com, Spotify, Apple, wherever.
Okay.
The second show that discusses light pollution is called Restoring Darkness, and it's at restoringdarkness.com. Again, you can find it on Spotify, Apple, everywhere you listen to podcasts. We also, I'm not the host of the show, is the Lighting Controls podcast, and that's another show that, I'd like to invite you to come on, Eric, and speak with Ron and Webb. I think they'd have a great time with you.
Awesome.
And then I also do a whole bunch of work for LightTed magazine, which is lighttedmag.com. It's run by the National Association of Electrical Distributors in the U.S. I don't know if I should say that now of all the stuff that I've brought up on this phone, but anyway, on this call. And then you can go to getagripstudios.com, which is my podcast production website. If you have a great idea, you want to start, I'll talk to you for a bit about it. And I don't care if you become a client or not. Actually, I just love it when I'm involved. Just like we connected right away in the podcast world. There's something about the podcast world that is so collegial and wanting to help each other, and that I just love it. If you have an idea, you want to talk it through with me for half an hour, I'll give you some tips. You can use my studio if you want. If you don't want to use my studio, that's okay too. I love producing this kind of media, and I think it's the future, and I'd like to encourage people to do it. So give me a call.
What a resource. Thank you so much for that. And listen, also, next time you go to the post office, look on the wall. You'll probably see Michael's picture under Most Wanted Serial Entrepreneurs, and you will say, I saw him on Control Talk now. So there you go. Mike, thanks so much.
It's been my pleasure, Eric. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, there you go. That's another week on Control Talk Now. Appreciate you tuning in. Thanks to Michael Colligan. Man, be sure to check his stuff out. Thanks to Bill Duckelberger and the folks at Blue Ridge Technology for their sponsorship. And until next week, remember, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant. As Hunter Thompson used to say, buy the ticket, take the ride. And as Kenny Smyers used to say, in